Hello and welcome to Real Watchers Movie Club. My name is Garrett.
And I'm Kevin.
And we are your hosts. Movie Club is the show where we take a movie every week and discuss it just like a book club. On today's show, we're covering the first film in the legendary trilogy, Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. Our thoughts and more coming up on Movie Club. Released in 1977, Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope was directed by George Lucas and stars Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, and Carrie Fisher. Luke Skywalker joins forces with a Jedi Knight, a cocky pilot, a Wookiee, and 2 droids to save the galaxy from the Empire's world-destroying battle station while also attempting to rescue Princess Leia from the mysterious Darth Vader. It is currently ranked 28 on IMDb's Top 250 and currently has a 4.2 out of 5 on Letterboxd. It won 6 Oscars for Best Visual Effects, Best Original Score, Best Film Editing, Best Sound, Best Costume Design, Best Art Direction, and got a special recognition for sound designer Ben Burtt. It was also nominated for 4 more, including Original Screenplay, Best Director, Best Supporting Actor for Alec Guinness, and Best Picture. Before we dive into our thoughts, though, we want to issue a quick spoiler warning for the film. We will be discussing plot points, twists, revelations, and more so much on the show. So if you haven't seen the film yet, go and watch it. If you're one of the 2 people that hasn't, it's on Disney+. You can probably find it anywhere. But stay tuned to the end of the show so you can find out what movie is going to be next week, which is not that hard to find out because this is a trilogy, and all of them are in the list. All right, Kevin. New Hope, one of the biggest movies of all time, originally released just as the name Star Wars. Because I wasn't sure if they were going to get a sequel or not. This is a big one, and you had actually recommended that we watch the entire trilogy. So what was the reasoning on that?
I just like this movie's kind of like it tells all one story, so it'd be nice just to get it one after the other, so we can continue the saga of the best, basically, sci-fi movies that we have ever had.
I don't know if I agree with best sci-fi movies because these are technically fantasy movies. Because it doesn't really have anything to do with speculative science, so it doesn't really count as a science fiction thing. Usually you get people like, oh, Star Trek's better than Star Wars because it's sci-fi. Like that's their reasoning. I'm not saying that Star Trek is better. I'm not saying that. But it's at least a little, there's a difference in the genre.
Maybe futuristic.
Futuristic, sure. Oh, it's actually in the past, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So it's just not the normal. It's like it's a spacefaring fantasy.
Yeah,
that's probably the best way of describing it. But I mean, obviously, I know you like Star Wars. I like Star Wars. But what's your history with Star Wars? Was this the first one you saw?
No. What was the first one I saw? I think I saw the one with Rey. I'm horrible at these names, so I will just be telling you which one I know the main character to. So, is it Rise of Skywalker? No, that's
Force Awakens would have been the first one.
That's what it is.
And then The Last Jedi, then Rise of Skywalker.
I think I have seen all of the original trilogy, and then the prequels before that, and then the new ones, but I don't remember a lot of them. Like with New Hope, I didn't remember that this is the Death Star blowing up movie.
Wow. Alrighty.
Yeah.
So that's it's almost as close as you can get to a first time viewing.
Oh yeah. I probably haven't watched these in maybe over 10 years. So
wow. All right. Well, Star Wars was a major part of my life for a very long time. And I will say, for me personally, for the franchise as a whole, I've definitely soured on it as the years have gone on. Not because of anything wrong with the quality of what we've been getting, more so just I really don't like the fan base. Like, it's just become a toxic cesspool of human beings, and I just, I just don't like to be around that anymore. Like I've kind of taken the opinion, like I have my opinions on the prequels and the sequels. But that's not what we're here to talk about, right? We did a podcast episode about this not too long ago. You can find it here on the channel, I think. But, I still have the opinion the original trilogy is such a landmark moment in film and in world like history, not just film history, but like history itself. Like Star Wars was the biggest opening of all time, like not even close. It was like, to say it was a phenomenon was really underselling how big of an effect this had when it came out.
And still how big it is today.
Yeah.
Like when Disneyland opened up Star Wars Land, there wasn't you could not even walk through that land when it first opened, and it's just it embraces you and it pulls you in and it takes you on a journey far, far away. No pun intended, but
like you could literally just watch any of the movies at like a surface level, or you could get in more into it and play the video games, read the books, watch the TV shows, and get more invested in it. It's a very welcoming, I guess, narrative and kind of world because it is so approachable.
Exactly.
I would say some of the latest shows definitely are not as approachable just because they require some knowledge of other things that have happened. But the movies themselves, you could go into them, totally fine. And that started with this movie, with A New Hope, which is the one that started it all. It is the landmark event. Like it's you really can't state enough how big of a movie this was and how much of an effect that it's had on visual effects, on the way that people go to movies. Like it's historic. I don't think this movie is anywhere near perfect though.
Oh no, no. But it's just the visual effects in this movie are just no pun intended again, but out of this world. Because the way that they made in some movies when you go to space, they don't make space black enough, if that makes any sense. But in like these older Star Wars movies, that thing is like black, so the stars are so bright, and it really makes you feel like you're in space, not just like a dark black, but this is like pitch black, like you can't see anything but the stars in the background.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. Is what it is. Even though it has its 70s aesthetic, it has its 70s feel for sure. I mean, I don't know if anyone would have the kind of haircuts that they that they have in these movies, but I mean, if you think about it too, one of the things that I'll stay on some positives for now, right? Like I think that this film really shows George Lucas's love of film, particularly at some point we will watch Seven Samurai here on the Movie Club, and more of Kurosawa's work. And George Lucas was a huge fan of Akira Kurosawa. Many of those directors from that time, so him, Spielberg, Scorsese, Coppola, the big directors were all influenced by Kurosawa, and you can tell in this movie. It definitely feels very similar in tone and very it's almost like it's paying homage to the people that came before, while also channeling this path forward that they didn't know at the time when filming it that it would, be so world changing. But it starts with just this homage to what came before, and that's what I really have, as an adult, what I really appreciate this film's more for.
Yeah, and I like how it's very easy to follow this movie. There's nothing like the other movies that we'll take a look at, but this one's very easy to follow. You know who everybody is. They don't go into any specifics on any of the side characters, not too much, but like just enough to be like, if you want to know more about them, you can go find it online or anything like that. And that's what I liked about it. It was just Luke, Han, Chewie, and Princess Leia. Those were like your four, and then you had like your side main characters, which was Darth Vader and the
C-3PO, R2-D2.
Yeah, those guys. But it was never just like, okay, it's Luke and Han. It was just all of them had a very good balance throughout the whole movie, and it wants. Like me watching this, I can't wait to watch the other two now because I didn't know how fully enthralled I was in this.
Yeah, I mean it's hard not to be enthralled in this movie. Like you're just sitting there watching it, and I don't know if it's because of its pedigree or if it's because you know how big of a movie it is, which I guess would be its pedigree, or if you're just actually legitimately invested. Like, no matter who you are, unless you're a heartless person, you're going to get some form of enjoyment out of this movie. And it's going to come from somewhere. So it speaks to the film's openness and how well it connects to a bunch of different audiences, because it is textbook. Like, the story for this, and I'll transition into the actual script and everything here. The overall story for this is like a textbook version of the hero's journey, right?
Yeah.
Which is a very well-known concept in literature and kind of storytelling. It's a structure to your film. It's kind of like your 3-act structure. It's similar to that, where it's like a guiding principle of sorts. And I think that by telling a story that's so familiar, yet in a location and with people and with aliens and things that you don't see, that's what makes it so imaginative and enthralling, like we were saying.
Yeah.
But it will lead into one of my biggest criticisms about this movie, is that while George Lucas is a great universe builder, like, he knows how to build a world and to fill it with characters, with relationships and everything, still not the best with dialogue, and never really has been.
No, but the dialogue is just enough. At least for me, it's just enough to get me looking past that, because I'm looking at the special effects. I'm looking at how they did this, and just listening to the dialogue. Yes, it's very you can predict what they're gonna say next.
It's pretty rough.
Much. Yeah, but it's like I'm waiting. I'm like, okay, he's gonna say this, but then when you see like the Death Star rolling through space to the planet where Leia's from, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's what I'm here to see. I'm here to see that world building, pretty much, from George Lucas. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which is what I mean. I will say, we kind of love it for the same reasons that a lot of people don't like Marvel movies anymore. Where it's like, because it's more of a roller coaster thrill ride, as opposed to something that's trying to tell a unique and engaging story. I'm sure people will argue that to death with me, but like, it is more of the latter. But yeah, it's just, I mean, again, the dialogue, not good. I mean, there are parts that are good, but it's so interesting, especially watching it now. In what I was going to say is that I think that this film came out at the perfect time, right? If this film came out as is today, it'd probably be treated the same as Rebel Moon Part 1.
I haven't seen that yet, so
which Rebel Moon was a Star Wars movie and has a lot in common with Star Wars, among other things. And because it was a Star Wars movie that he pitched to Disney, and then they didn't want it, so he made it at Netflix and changed a bunch of things. But like, that movie feels very similar to this in terms of what it's trying to do, and it's not good. It just doesn't do things well. So like, I think if this movie came out today, it'd be in the same boat. I don't think this movie would be nearly as loved if it came out today. But that's because it already came out and it already established that foundation of, unique storytelling and world building.
I agree with you. I think, if this was taking place right here and it's in the movie theaters, we're gonna go see it. We come out of that movie theater just like, it was good. It wasn't the best, but it made me pay attention to the screen and everything like that. But it was there.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the other things about it too is that because of when it came out, you have more of a reverence for how they were able to accomplish things. I mean, now, it's a very flawed ideology that moviegoers have, where they go, oh, just throw it in, like, just do it with computer effects. We can just do that in Blender or in whatever other thing, right? Like, we can just create those TIE fighters. We can do the exterior shots of the Millennium Falcon. But in the 70s, you couldn't. It's all miniatures, and they're superimposed onto, footage. So, like, it has more of a special quality to it, and it shows more of the determination of the team behind it. I don't know if you've seen any of the documentaries for this film, but it was a real rough time. Going over budget, the shoot was getting delayed because this was like George Lucas's second film, and like it's a very big movie for for a sophomore film. Right? Well, I guess junior because he did THX 1138 too. But it was a huge undertaking for the time, and it's kind of one of those things that like I almost think that there should be an alternate reality show or book or something where Star Wars came out and it didn't succeed.
Yeah,
because it's that huge.
I think that could have happened too. Like you said, if it came out like in the 80s, I don't think it would have blown up the same way it did in the 70s. Because
no, I mean it had its popularity continuing into the 80s, but that's because it already came out.
Yeah, exactly. You already had that fan base already wanting more behind it. But no, to go back on the documentaries and stuff, I have not seen anything. I've only seen like the Corridor crew do their Star Wars episode talking about how it's done, and it's amazing what they did back in the 70s with that, because it's ridiculous. I wouldn't even attempt to think about that now, just to digitally negative out stuff and to put it on a white backboard so it pops more. It's like he's one of the greatest, George Lucas. He's one of the greatest for a reason, and this is his reason.
It's it's one of those things where the more you know about it behind the scenes, the more you can respect it, I think.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm focusing so much on it with this episode, because it is so important how this film got made, right? Because studios passed on this movie. All the big studios were like, nah, this won't be successful, we're not going to take a chance on it. And then 20th Century Fox was persuaded into doing it, and then it's their biggest movie of all time, I think. I'd have to double check that.
Think about that. If someone else like Warner Brothers picks up Star Wars instead of Fox, how different it would be. Or Universal picks up Star Wars, then we don't have Disneyland, Star Wars Land at Disneyland. We probably have it at Universal Studios instead.
Yeah. I mean, that's even if it was, because of the troubled production, it may not have even gotten made if it was in another studio, if they didn't give Lucas the chance. So, like, there are so many things that came together to get this film made that it's really, really interesting. And because of that, we get this film, which, again, like, I don't think it's perfect. And I will never say that Star Wars Episode 4 is perfect. It's still very good, though. It's like, as someone who is their first world that they've built from scratch, aside from THX, but that was more of like just a sci-fi kind of dystopia movie. This is like a whole universe that George put together, and the fact that he was able to do that and inspire so many people after doing it, and then being able to complete it with all the problems he went through and all the health issues, it is truly it's why these films are so what's the word I'm thinking of? They're so inspirational to upcoming film directors. Yeah. And people who are like anyone involved in film, actors, directors, producers, anyone can find something in this movie that will inspire them to move their career forward. Whether it's the visual effects and how they did it, whether it's how George Lucas was able to keep everything on track after all these delays. It is really something special, whether or not it's perfect. And the movie doesn't have to be perfect to be special.
Exactly.
There are bad movies that are special.
That are special and that we enjoy more than like top 10 movies of all time. Like we know we have guilty pleasures all the time. Like everybody does, and if you say you don't, you're lying to yourself.
It may not just be. It just may not be a movie, but you do have your guilty pleasure.
Oh
Everyone
yeah,
has a guilty pleasure.
I just thought about this too, Garrett. Think about if the creator came out back then. I don't think it I don't think it would have been successful before. Like maybe like
Well,
3 years
technically, it
after.
wasn't successful now.
I know, but like I just don't like how people are saying we need new movies and new ideas, and then we get The Creator, which is a great movie with everything in it, like with special effects and actors and actresses, but then it flops. So it's like, if you don't want us to keep doing a Marvel, go see other movies. Even though
I've
it's
said the same exact thing on other videos here on the channel.
I know,
But yeah, it's
but
hypocritical.
that's what it is. It's just, oh, another the Marvels 2 is coming out. Oh, okay, but here's this other
Fast
one.
and Furious 11 is coming out.
Yeah.
Minions 17 is coming out. It's
Mhm.
because they get people to go see them.
Exactly. Oh, and it's the name. So that's what
Which Star Wars got when it came out. Like, and that didn't have the viral nature of the internet. It didn't have,
Mhm.
you know, I mean, you had like news programs that were talking about it, and Siskel and Ebert were on at this time, and like, but like it was all word of mouth,
Yeah.
and it became the biggest movie of all time at that time.
And that's what I think we're missing from what today is word of mouth, not going online and doing like reviews on YouTube is totally fine, but
Because you can see the person. Like,
yeah,
you, the viewer, can look at Kevin or me, and you can see our face, and we're telling you an honest opinion. Whereas anyone with a username and a profile picture can say anything they want, and it can be taken as gospel. Which that just leads into a bigger problem, though, of like critics being less trusted than ever.
yeah.
Which is just it. Like, really, that makes me mad. But we know what we're talking about. But like, again, it was all word of mouth that made this movie a success. And we are, with the exception of things like Avatar, or like Barbie, things that became a success. I think Avatar and Barbie are like the closest things we have to a film like Star Wars, right? We every once in a while we get a movie that has word of mouth behind it. People went and saw Avatar, and they told their friends to go see it, and so they do. And then they hear, oh, it's the biggest movie of all time, so people are like, well, I gotta go see it, And then same with like Barbie, right? Barbie became the highest grossing movie of 2023. So people were like, and people heard nothing but good things about it from their friends, and they all got to dress up, and it was an event. And we're missing things like that. And I think that where we really saw that start was Star Wars.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Arguably. Probably definitively is when that started, because then you start people getting dressed up to go to the movies with the second one. And, it just became more of an event. I get years before, I would say you did have Jaws. And Jaws was like the movie that started the blockbuster, because you had people waiting online on the street blocks and stuff.
Yep.
Arguably, that was the first one, but Star Wars, I think, was the one that the one that blew that out of the water. Because
I think Jaws was one which was kind of horror themed, but this one you could get into a character that you liked, and you could display your like for that character, and that's what made it more personal to him. Jaws is just a big shark. Star Wars is a world of stars. Pretty much, you can go to any galaxy, you can go to any planet, you can be whoever you want.
It gave people kind of a, I don't want to, I'd have to research this, and pardon me for maybe getting this wrong, but I feel like this is one of the first films that provided a true mental escape.
Oh yeah,
you could envision yourself being a part of that universe. You could be anyone, like, in some ways, this, I believe, again, I might be wrong, but things like Star Wars preceded like Dungeons and Dragons or other things that provided similar kinds of escapes, right? And so you're getting to see this world and this universe that you could populate. as yourself, and you can make your life. And people like that. They arguably like watching things that they can escape. Not every movie has to be Oppenheimer, or
No.
Shawshank Redemption or The Godfather. These dark mirrors that we get held up to our face, or even Barbie, had a motivation behind it. It had a message. It wasn't really an escape film. It was made with a purpose. And not saying that Star Wars isn't made for a purpose. The purpose is obviously to tell an engaging and unique story, but it's an escape. You can be somewhere else for that time being, and arguably you can do that with any movie. But this is where it was truly the first time you're like, I'm gonna go to Alderaan for an hour and 45 minutes. I'll be back out of the movie theater. So I think that's a lot of what the magic is behind it. And I think that audiences really latched onto that and became emotionally invested and got ready to support these characters. And no one knew we were getting a sequel until a couple of years later, after that. So they just fell in love with the movie. And then eventually it'd become a franchise, and it would pretty much be one of the cornerstones of Western culture, arguably. Everyone knows Darth Vader. Which if you saw my top 10 villains video that I made, you'll remember I talked about that. It literally is a cornerstone of culture. Like human culture. You have Shakespeare, you have Bach, Mozart, you have, hieroglyphics, you have Star Wars. It's literally that influential. And even if you don't like Star Wars, you can respect it.
And of it. That's the other thing too. Nadia hasn't seen a Star Wars movie, none of them.
But she knows what a lightsaber is.
She knows what lightsabers. She knows Darth Vader. She knows the Millennium Falcon. She knows Chewie.
The Force.
She knows everything about it. So and not a lot of movies have that power to say, "Hey, I'm your father," and somebody just random that you don't know be like, "No, it's Luke. I am your father," and stuff
Well, that's the movie we're talking about next week. But
yeah, I know, but it's like you can literally go up to anybody and just do the heavy breathing, and they're like, "Oh, that's Darth Vader." It's just so iconic.
And also one of the other things too, right, is that this is one of the movies where you could anyone could project themselves into these characters. You can see yourself in any of their shoes. That's not the first movie by any means, but it was just so effective in everything else it was doing that became a part of it too. So
it wasn't too far out there that it was just like, oh, I can't be, if Luke was an alien that was blue or something, it's like, oh, I can't be Luke because he's blue and from another planet. No, he just looked like a regular human that was in space pretty much on a different planet.
And arguably, right, it's like you're getting this universe and this world for the first time. You were seeing it unfold in front of your eyes, and it's unfolding with everyone else and with the film crew and with George, right? So it's not like the only thing I can really think of is it's like being around when the Lord of the Rings was first written, right? Back in the 20s or the 30s. I don't know exactly what year it came out in, but you were experiencing this whole new world for the first time. Or when what's the other thing, when Elder Scrolls first started for video gaming, you were seeing this whole new world for the first time, or Fallout, or any of these where it's these giant expansive worlds that you're getting to experience at the same time as everyone else for the first time, right? So it's not so much like you're going into this thing. It's not like you're going into the Lord of the Rings movie and being like, oh, what's an orc? Do I really have what's the relationship between dwarves and elves? It's all being laid out in front of you, and I think that is another reason why it was so popular and so successful. Because you're seeing everything for the first time, and it's being shown to you in a way that everyone can understand.
Yeah, and then if you want to expand your knowledge on what is happening, you have that information later on, or you have the books that came out later on in that time frame.
All right, Kevin, so this was your pick for this week. I guess I'll go ahead and give my score first. So I think, if you can't tell, I do have a deep respect for this movie. And while I don't think it's perfect, I think the dialogue is a little hammy. I think some of the characters in this film can be a little annoying. I'm looking at you, Luke. It still commands respect because it is one of the most influential movies of all time. and there is so much good that it does outweigh the bad. And for me, I do give the film a 90 out of 100. Again, nowhere near perfect, but still very, very good. One of my favorite films of all time, from when I was a kid to now. And that's a 90 out of 100 and a 4.5 out of 5 on Letterboxd.
Yeah. So I actually wrote a description, so let me read it.
Oh, here you go. First time.
I'm gonna change my score. Actually, I didn't want to give it this high. So 4.5 stars out of 5, and I liked it, which is good. But what a great way to start an amazing franchise. Lots of visual effects, and all the actors and actresses are amazing. Can't wait to finish off this trio. So, and that's what this is. If you want to start a movie and you haven't seen this for some reason, this is just a great base for, if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you can respect it. So, and I gave it like a 95 out of 100.
And real quick, I did want to add the documentary that I was talking about, the one that's very good that I would recommend you watch if you're into Star Wars or at least film history and want to see how it was made. The documentary is on Disney Plus. It is called Empire of Dreams, and you can find it on there. It's a 2.5-hour documentary, and it goes over the whole trilogy, but it's a really good way to kind of know what happened as it was being made. So the question now falls to you. What do you think of Episode 4, A New Hope? Go ahead and leave your thoughts down in the comment section down below, but remember to be respectful of one another, especially with the Star Wars movies, because you can get real toxic when it comes to Star Wars. Next week, we'll be covering the next film in the franchise, which is Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, which, shocker, is also on the IMDb Top 250, and I believe it's on the Letterboxd 250 as well. Make sure to watch it, before next week, so you're not spoiled, because there is a big spoiler in Empire Strikes Back. And thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to us here on YouTube, and follow us on all of our social media at Reel Watchers. That's REEL Watchers, pretty much everywhere. We got some more content coming very soon, and I believe by the time this is out, our website may be live. So you can check it out. I will post the link in the description if it is ready. If you don't see the link down there, it's not ready yet. But again, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, keep your eyes on the screen.